Hello, and welcome to How Do Undergrads Feel About Open Pedagogy Projects? New insights from an interdisciplinary study. Thank you all for joining us today. We're looking forward to sharing our work with you. First, we'd like to take a moment to introduce ourselves. I'm Denise Hattwig. I'm the head of digital scholarship at the University of Washington Bothell Cascadia College Library. I use the pronouns she, her.
Alyssa Berger, I use she, they pronouns, and I'm the Science, Math, and Education Librarian at the UW Bothell and Cascadia College Library.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Nesvig. I use she, her pronouns, and I am Global and Policy Studies Librarian at the UW Bothell and Cascadia College Campus Library.
So how do undergrads feel about open pedagogy projects? This is a word cloud of words students in one class use to describe how they felt about working on an open project. We'll share more specifics about our research and student responses, but we wanted to give you a preview of some of those student feelings. So students in one class use these words: excited, nervous, great, eager, interested, pressure, all right, cool, empowered, beneficial, happy, hopeful, embarrassed, appreciate, privileged, hesitant, confident, and challenging. So in this session, we'd like to start with some institutional and open pedagogy context and framing, talk a bit about open student work and informed open participation, share some of the ways that we teach open concepts, and discuss some research methods we're using in our ongoing study. Then we'll open things up for a community conversation and your questions, and wrap things up with links to resources and our thank yous. Feel free to add questions to the chat throughout our presentation, and we'll answer them during the questions section at the end. So I'll turn it over to Alyssa to get us started.
Great. Thanks, Denise. Okay, so let's start with where we're coming from and how we've approached open pedagogy. So we're librarians at the University of Washington Bothell, one of 3 University of Washington campuses and a part of the UW library system. UW Bothell is minority serving institution qualified with approximately 5,200 undergraduate students and around 545 graduate students. The campus is also co-located with Cascadia College, and the library serves both institutions. UW Bothell is a student learning centered institution with a strong culture of engaged and transformative pedagogy. Our campus library is a really active partner in this culture as a teaching library with robust faculty collaborations and a commitment to high impact practices, open initiatives, and critical pedagogy. The open pedagogy practices and research that we're sharing with you today have developed out of our library digital scholarship program. Students have used digital scholarship tools and methods in their class assignments to create new knowledge with the guidance and support of both faculty and the library. These course-based projects are often intertwined with faculty scholarship and open publishing and have been co-developed through close library collaborations with our faculty partners. So with all of the rich and thoughtful definitions of open pedagogy that many of you and others have articulated, we wanted to be sure to succinctly clarify our small slice of this work and what we mean by open pedagogy in our own research and praxis. So in our experience, open pedagogy is co-creating open digital projects with students as a part of their learning experience. So let's jump right in and take a look at some of the specific projects that students have co-created with faculty and library partners that are at the heart of our teaching and research. Badass Women in the Pacific Northwest, Volume 1, was one of the first student-created projects in Pressbooks EDU back in 2019, and is the first of its kind at the University of Washington. The zine came out of a 200-level gender, women, and sexuality course that situated the project in the context of feminist zine traditions. Students created art and researched and wrote biographies of Pacific Northwest women. Volume 2 followed in 2023 with an updated title, Badass Women and Envies in the Pacific Northwest. In the 100 level class general learning strategies, students engage with and discuss broad course themes such as communication, time management, and emotional intelligence. The online learning of the pandemic generated the creation of Becoming a Learner, a SPLOT website to replace a previous Princeton project. And for those who aren't familiar, SPLOT stands for Smallest Possible Learning Online Tool. Students responded to weekly reflection prompts on the site and integrated images or videos that they found connections with. This allowed them to engage with their classmates' reflections after writing their own and offered a space to express their connections to class themes each week. In a 200 level education course, students critically evaluated an education-focused nonprofit organization in the Puget Sound region, and then they contributed their analysis to the Toolkit for Student Success, a WordPress site developed by the faculty as a resource for practicing K-12 teachers. One of the primary learning goals of the course was for students to analyze how issues related to race, ethnicity, social class, and other factors intersect and influence students' opportunity to learn. So by participating in an open project that actively works against information privilege, it directly supports the core learning outcomes of the course. All right. The Feminist Archives exhibit project is a collection of student-curated exhibits in a Mecca that highlight artifacts in feminist archives. A core component of the 300 level class is feminist knowledge production and the importance of sharing the history and knowledge of women and LGBTQ+ people. The course themes of open archives and feminist knowledge production created synergy with students learning about open as a social justice practice and seeing themselves as creators of open knowledge. So it's important to note that these student projects were not part of a programmatic approach to open pedagogy via any academic department. Rather, projects were closely tied to particular courses and faculty members, all of whom were really deeply committed to not only the course content, but also the impact of open student work and the process of engaging students with digital scholarship to create something meaningful for those students to carry forward. So, for example, if a faculty member is no longer teaching a class, that open project or assignment is likely not to be offered any longer. As librarians, we collaborate on assignment design and instruction, but it's really our faculty partners who initiate projects and create these opportunities for open student work. And now I will turn it over to Chelsea.
Great. Thank you, Alyssa. So open student work and informed open participation. So how did we engage students in this work, and how did we start to learn about how they feel about open pedagogy projects? Let's dive into what we call open student work and our commitment to informed open participation. So open student work is the language we use to center students and their work in open pedagogy environments. This language shifts the focus from our praxis of open pedagogy to instead be about the student experience. Open student work acknowledges student creation, labor, and products, and foregrounds student perspectives, agency, and ownership over their own education and scholarship. So open student work is any contribution a student makes to an open scholarship project or as a participant in an open pedagogy environment. Open student work can look very different from course to course, but it includes the commonalities of an open environment and student participation. Open student work is inclusive of both the process, that's to say the learning and the creation process, and also the product of students' participation in open digital projects. So why open student work? As important as the what of open student work, there's also the why of it. Why do we bring students into collaborative open work that they can share with broader publics? As educators and librarians, we do this for many reasons that are at the core of open pedagogy and teaching in higher education. So first, It's to highlight students as creators of information now and into their post-college lives. It's also to enable students to engage in public discourse and contribute their knowledge and experience. Additionally, it's to encourage students to critique and counteract information privilege. And lastly, it's also to provide tools for students to move toward open access models and participate as open creators. So informed open participation. Student learning and agency are the foundation of our facilitation of open assignments. In order for students to be able to participate in an open assignment, students first need a solid introduction to what it means to work and share in the open. This understanding of open concepts facilitates students seeing themselves as creators of new knowledge and participants in scholarly and public conversations. We also intentionally connect open concepts to other aspects of course content and social justice and anti-oppression practices, which enhances the meaning and significance of the project for students. Students become invested not only in fulfilling course requirements for a grade, but also contributing to information justice. We've seen this approach overall deepen student engagement with open pedagogy projects. It also supports students in making informed choices about sharing their coursework openly. So a bit about our teaching approach. Our primary teaching tool for introducing students to open concepts is our open student work activity. This activity includes introductory and contextual information about open concepts and Creative Commons, and it provides opportunities for students to reflect on their understanding of and feelings around open work. As part of the activity, students indicate whether or not they would like to contribute to the open project and if and how they want to be identified. This activity is deliberately asynchronous, so students have time to think through the concepts and respond thoughtfully and independently. The activity is completed in course Canvas sites, so it is in the LMS space that students are already using. We often pair this online activity with review and discussion to reinforce open concepts and further connect open with course content. We build in class time to share student responses and follow up on questions. And now I'll turn it over to Denise for more about our research.
Thanks, Chelsea. So once students do engage with open concepts and understand what open is, how do they feel about sharing their own work? So let's look at some specifics of our research. So a research summary, our research has grown out of the rich responses we've seen from students as they've engaged with open concepts through our open student work activity. As we heard from students, we saw an opportunity to probe more deeply into what matters to them and how we can build on their excitement and engagement while also addressing concerns. Our research data is drawn from these student responses. Because we deliberately designed the activity as a learning tool for students, we did not ask specific survey type questions that would have been useful for us, but would not necessarily have been a good use of students' time and energy. But because students' responses to the activity were robust, they nevertheless did present an opportunity for us to systematically analyze their expressed feelings and documented choices. So our open student work activity includes 4 sections. The first section is what is open and why does it matter, which teaches students about open concepts and asks students to reflect and share what is new about open and their questions. The open student work section gives students more information about their opportunities, rights, and responsibilities, and asks students how they feel about open work, how this project could be useful, and why it is important that this project is open. Creative Commons, which describes Creative Commons and the license applied to the project and gives students another opportunity to ask questions about Creative Commons and open. And the final section is student agreement and identification, which informs students that they can choose whether or not to include their work in an open project, and asks students to indicate whether or not they want their work to be open and what name or pseudonym they would like to use, or if they would like to be anonymous. We'd now like to share the specific scope, methods, and challenges of our research. We have integrated the open student work activity into 12 classes over 3 years with 4 different types of class projects, giving us over 400 student responses as our data set. To analyze the data, we of course started with anonymizing student responses and clearing our research with the UW Library's Office of Assessment, which advises UW Library staff on institutional review board policies. We are now working on both quantitative and qualitative analysis of responses. The activity asks students to both articulate their conceptual understanding of open work and reflect on the affective nature of this work, that is, how participating in open projects makes them feel. The complex nature and volume of the qualitative data in these responses presents both opportunities and challenges from a research perspective. As librarians, we are also limited in the time we have for research in the context of our other duties. So some initial quantitative results. We are happy to be able to share some initial results. A quick snapshot of this preliminary data shows us that 91% of students out of the 400 plus chose to share their work openly. Open was a new concept to 67% of the students we taught. 75% of students who shared their work openly chose to be identified with a version of their name, with 15% choosing a pseudonym and 8% choosing anonymous. Looking more closely at qualitative results, we're starting to see some common themes. Students have typically provided robust responses and thoughtful reflections, and we've consistently seen a high level of student engagement with open concepts. We frequently see that students feel compelled by the concept of information privilege and are motivated to work in the open as a way to contribute to diversity in new knowledge and increase information equity. Many students mentioned the appeal of creating connections and community that working in the open allows. Several have noted the limiting nature of the LMS and shared positive feelings about being able to collaborate with and learn from their classmates in more authentic ways. Some students express concern or apprehension about new types of assignments and producing quality work, while simultaneously being invested in project goals. So student feelings about open. To look more specifically at this aspect of the experience, we've assembled a small sample of representative student quotes. We'll read a few phrases, and complete quotes are in the slides and script. One student said, "I feel empowered to contribute to an open project and put my work out there for other people to see. On the other hand, I feel nervous putting my work out in the public on a subject matter I am just starting out in learning."
Another student said, contributing to an open site helped with my confidence. It made me get out of my comfort zone, which I think broke a barrier in a way.
A student said, originally I felt a little hesitant. I feel still that my knowledge is limited, And I guess I worry about publishing work that I may later disagree with.
Another student said, I can see my own ideas transformed with new perspectives of others.
And someone noted, I was a little nervous just because the open site made it to where everyone could see your personal artifact submissions. But I actually thought that it was quite interesting to see what everyone else submitted and whether or not it was similar to what I thought of. The choice to use a pseudonym actually made me a lot more comfortable with sharing personal artifacts.
I'm excited to be participating in a project that very intentionally seeks to disrupt oppressive power structures. I also think this project will hopefully help me become more comfortable with sharing my knowledge and scholarship publicly.
So next steps for our research. Our next steps with our research include completing the full data analysis of student responses in our open student work activity, continuing to iterate teaching and research approaches, and beginning to ask and explore new questions about open student work on our campus. So I'll turn over to Chelsea to share some additional support strategies for this work and then facilitate our community conversation.
Okay, great. We would now like to share some strategies related to other aspects of supporting students with open projects. And then, like Denise said, we'll open things up to hear your thoughts and ideas related to this work. So, more strategies we use. Teaching students about open concepts is just one part of developing and supporting an open student project, of course. From our experience, two key areas are faculty-library partnerships and technology support. So with faculty-library partnerships, developing a common understanding of open work is essential. Not all faculty or librarians have experience with open concepts, so it is important to build that knowledge together. Collaborative assignment and syllabus design is an opportunity to build in student instruction about open concepts. A whole course view of an open project can also scaffold all related student work, including feedback opportunities, so students are able to share their best work in open environments. Conversations about faculty, library, and student roles, labor, and capacity are also key to a successful student experience. Technology is another crucial piece of open work. You have decisions to make around the learning goals related to technology, including whether you want students to engage with the technology, which is often new to them, focus simply on the open content, or a combination of both. Do you see value in students spending a lot of time and effort learning a new technology, or is it more important to smooth technology barriers to focus on other aspects of course content? You'll also need to align your project content with the right platform and hosting environment. In the UW libraries, we offer multiple digital scholarship hosting and open publishing platform options. So we're well equipped to support open student projects. If this is not the case at your institution, you'll need to spend some time evaluating your options. Regardless, someone will need to set up project sites, train students and faculty to use and administer the sites, and provide timely help with questions and troubleshooting. So, your ideas. Our hope for this session was not only to share our teaching approaches and research, but also to hear from you about how you co-create open projects with students and support student participation in this work. Now that we've covered some of our work, we'd like to open up this conversation and hear your ideas for supporting students with open projects. We have created a Padlet to share ideas, which should be linked in the chat in just a moment. And we have listed the prompts here on the slide as well. I'll just go ahead and take a moment to read through these prompts. So what is new to you with our approach to teaching open student work? We're curious. What interests or surprises you about student responses and their feelings about open work? Are there classes or assignments where you would like to incorporate open student work? We're very curious. How have you or how would you think about supporting students in open pedagogy assignments? And lastly, we'd love to have you share how your classes or assignments elevate student experiences and knowledges in contrast to standard knowledge production models, such as a research paper. So we'd love to have you join us over in the Padlet for some collaborative brainstorming and sharing. Yep, I see it linked in the chat. Thank you, Alyssa. We will take about 10 minutes for this activity in the Padlet, and then we'll come back together, kind of take a look at what you all shared, and then have time for questions. So we'll wrap it up probably somewhere around 2:35, 2:36. We'll see how things are going. So I'm going to transition my slide share to the Padlet and give you all time in there. Thank you. Thank you all for jumping in so quickly. I've already seen some super interesting responses, so please keep it up. See more and more awesome responses added to the Padlet. Thank you all so much. Give it at least a couple more minutes. See if we continue to get some more answers and thoughts. And then I'll take a moment to call out some of the especially interesting things that you all have added. Again, thank you all for these amazing ideas and reflections here in our Padlet site. I can't wait to spend more time with this once our presentation is over, but I would love to just kind of point out a few of the interesting things that have jumped out at me, and then see if Alyssa or Denise have anything to share here from the Padlet as well. I love in the question about other classes or assignments where you would like to incorporate open student work. I noticed that somebody was talking about these two down kind of from the beginning, the lab courses idea is very interesting to me. I'm not a liaison to any science classes, but I think that's a very cool idea, and would love to see what would come of that. I also noticed that someone I would like to have students create videos for how to use the databases. Amazing idea. Student perspective on using the database could be so wonderful. I see people are really interested in the way that we've kind of put together our Canvas activities, so that's great that you're seeing that as a positive here from our work. I'll pause a moment and see if anything jumped out to you, Alyssa and Denise, from what people are sharing.
Yeah, I loved in the last column, how do your classes or assignments elevate student experiences? And someone was talking about teaching in a non-major science class and giving students the opportunity to write content. And so really helping them think through that the idea that as non-majors, they are not an authority figure and they can't create information in that space, and really changing that by allowing them to do that and showing that they have, say, thoughts, opinions, and other bases of knowledge to draw from. And I think that's such a great way to highlight that, and also to generate like really interesting content, because when you're, I think, in the space that you are learning in or teaching in, it's really easy to feel siloed and look at it from one lens. And so to acknowledge and show that someone looking at it from a different lens can bring really useful information, I think is so cool.
Yeah, these are all fantastic ideas. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll be spending time with this as well.
Give it another minute or so in case anybody has any last thoughts they'd like to add. And of course, it doesn't end right here. You can hold on to this link, of course. One person said that they love that students have the option to use a pseudonym, and yeah, we think that's definitely an important part of contributing work openly for these types of projects. And again, you saw it wasn't the majority of students who chose a pseudonym, but some of them did, and they appreciate that.
And while we didn't address it with our numbers, some classes as a whole choose a name for the class, which can also be a fun exercise.
Noticing it, maybe it's the same person, but a couple of mentions of Spanish classes in here, which is such a cool idea. I'm our campus liaison to language classes, and I have an idea that's just a tiny idea in my head, but doing some open work with that, with Pressbooks and a Spanish class, I think would be really fun. Okay, it looks like maybe Padlet's responses are starting to slow down. So thank you all again so much for what you've shared. And if you want to share more in the near future, please feel free. I'm going to go back to our slides now. And unless you have anything else about the Padlet, Denise and Alyssa, I will move us into our questions.
Sounds good. So please feel free to continue dropping questions in the chat, or unmute and ask is great too. I had recorded questions that came up in the chat as we were presenting, so I'll start with those. But looks like we have lots of time for questions and discussion. Or if you have other things in the Padlet you want to touch on, that's really great too. But I will start with the questions that we have. Someone asked, do you scaffold the idea of open throughout, or do they just engage the one time with the worksheet? That's a great question.
You want me to take that one?
Sure, Denise.
Okay. We didn't plan who would answer. Yes, we feel it's very important to not surprise students with an open plan right before they need to do their project. So we start early talking with the faculty about open, and then we can basically just continue that conversation throughout the course with students, so that all kinds of issues have time to come up and everyone has a chance to talk about it.
Yeah, I will say from my perspective with the one education class that I primarily partner with, the faculty member is so engaged in open and so well versed in it that the language is kind of infused like throughout the course. And so we both, outside of the activity, spend time answering student questions. You know, she has regular check-ins with them about it. And then at the end of the course, there's a feedback option with lots of parts of the course, but the open project is also one of them. So there are lots of opportunities for students to engage and reflect and continue to think about how this work makes them feel.
And I'll just quickly jump in and add that in the course that I've worked on, it's the Becoming a Learner, the General Academic Strategies class, where students are adding a post to our SWOT website for several weeks in a row. I think we did like 6 weeks in a row of responses in that site, and so it's really built into the course because it's part of their weekly, essentially their course routine. The class meets once a week and they post to the site once a week, and then we also do a version of that reflection that Alyssa mentioned.
And we've also found that it does really matter if the faculty are able to speak confidently about open and why it matters for this particular class, for this particular project, etc. We try to avoid the scenario where we show up kind of as, you know, guest speakers or something, and we're just plunked into something that we haven't had a piece in integrating open into. So that's been really effective to have those close partnerships with faculty so that open is a part of the whole class.
And I feel like that actually relates really well to our next question, which was, I'm curious how you got in touch with the educators who teach the courses where you've integrated this approach, and how you got their buy-in as well. I think we touched on it a tiny bit in the presentation, but a lot of this work is so faculty driven. So a lot of it, and Denise, maybe you can speak more to sort of the beginnings of a lot of this, but so much of it has been faculty expressing interest or being like, I have an idea for this project, and working on that kind of co-development piece rather than us really going out and being like, do you want to do this in your classroom space? But Denise or Chelsea, also feel free to jump in on that.
Yeah, I'll just add that I think it can also come out of pre-existing relationships with faculty. I had a close relationship working with a faculty member who did the open project that I have worked on, and it was a very classroom based, like we said briefly, a physical zine assignment, and we hadn't thought at all about like taking it into really the open sphere, but the pandemic of course changed things. But having that close relationship, that close working relationship with her already really offered the opportunity to stop and say, okay, well, what is and isn't working about that assignment now? Is this a time where we want to try something different? And our direction of going open evolves in those conversations.
Yes, much of it has been collaborations with faculty partners we've collaborated with for years. So that's been wonderful because we've already had that rapport with them. And then it has kind of been word of mouth and us kind of collaborating amongst ourselves in the library, and then also reaching out to faculty we think might be interested. So.
And I think the last question that I saw in the chat, and this was kind of directed at everyone, so please folks feel free to put your answer in the chat or unmute and answer as well. But someone asked, does anyone see any challenges in integrating open pedagogy into more introductory 100 level courses? And maybe I'll turn that over to you, Chelsea and Denise, and for that 100 level course that you work with.
Yeah, it's a good question. The interesting thing about the class I've worked with, it is a 100 level class, but it attracts students from all 4 years of our campus. There's no kind of restrictions on who signs up for this class on general academic strategies or general learning strategies. So that's kind of been its own interesting challenge, is that there are students across, you know, their academic careers, so to speak, who are in the class. It might be first year, first quarter students, and it might be students who are close to graduating and maybe they just needed a couple credits. It really depends. So that has been something that we've had to think about a little bit. I don't know that it's directly influenced how we teach about open, because again, open shows up as new to students across the 4 years here at UW-Bothell. But I would be interested in what an approach could look like if it was a truly like first year class and all students were very new to the college experience and college learning. I don't know, does anyone else have thoughts on that?
We actually have started to have some conversations with faculty about this exact situation. And one really productive recent conversation, we all kind of came to the conclusion that first, it really depends on the type of work that students are being asked to do. If it's something, you know, fairly high level and complicated, it might not be the right time to introduce open concepts on top of something that's already complicated for instance, a first year student. But if it's something like posting reflections in the open, that is a place, as Chelsea mentioned, where it can be really useful and engaging to bring open into the conversation as well. So.
Oh yeah, I see a hand. Richard, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was the one who responded in the chat that I have experienced. My open pedagogy assignments have been exclusively with my incoming first year writing class, and these are the students who are in need of additional support. And what I have decided to do is have them make suggestions for revisions to the OER textbook that I wrote and that I am using. And it has been incredibly powerful for them. In terms of the challenges, their ability to write is not strong. They're in this class for a reason, and they are easily overwhelmed. And so I tend to take a very limited approach. For instance, I'm very specific about the things I want teams of them to submit rather than individual students. And in asking them to do this, for instance, I want them to learn to write alt text for images. So they are required to suggest images for the book, which is lacking in images. It needs them. And so there's an open invitation for them to make the book more theirs. The response I get from them, though, is they are gratified. They are surprised at just how open I am to having their commentary on my book. I actually intentionally have a session where the idea is that they're sharing what they're working on without having to get into a polished formal presentation. And I give them feedback, and I've made a distinct point to only give positive feedback. And that way they can get a sense of, oh, you know, what am I finding valuable about what they're doing? And then they can see it later on because I'm giving them credit for the work. For instance, I had one group that they decided that I really needed bullet points saying what are the key ideas at the end of the chapter. And I realized duh, I hadn't put that in there for any of the chapters. So I went through and wrote a bunch of them. And I was able to thank them for those kinds of contributions. So I would not, for instance, have them take on all of the issues around accessibility or have them take on a large section of text. It's a relatively short, confined kind of thing. And then I walk them through various stages about what is open, how do they engage with that idea, this kind of thing, that it's little bits at a time so that they don't end up feeling overwhelmed.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Sounds really fantastic. And I love, yeah, the idea of situating students as experts, as we've talked about a lot, and then giving them really intentionally positive feedback, because I think they just see themselves as such non-experts in every course that they're in and a lot of areas of their lives. And so they're just not used to that. And that can feel really anxiety inducing and really overwhelming. So to get that initial really positive feedback and clarity on what the instructor is looking for, I think is so great at like building that confidence. And then it sounds like you've seen, as we saw in our research too, students often then switch from anxiety mode to being like, oh, this is really empowering. I'm really invested in this. And this feels like such a cool departure from the really standard assignments that initially I felt comfortable with and maybe was more into doing. But yeah, I think that's really fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. Let's see. I'm seeing such great stuff in the chat too, so I don't want to miss a bunch of it. Someone noted not all 100 level students are first year students, but you need to scaffold to support students, support for students who have the most needs and work from there, which I think is really fantastic. And someone else, a couple people noted, remembering that open pedagogy doesn't have to be a huge project. It can be a single assignment, which I think is so important to remember. I think from our end of it, like I often feel very overwhelmed at the idea of open pedagogy because it feels like such a big and intense concept, but thinking about small ways to integrate that, I think is so fantastic. Like someone said, making memes that show understanding of a topic, I think is so cool. Let's see. And then we have another question. What is your advice regarding the ethics of including open assignments? How do you seek permission? Do you store permission? And do you give credit? How do you balance the strength and the possible contributions of individual students?
That's really, those are all good questions from Julie there. I have a few thoughts, but I don't know. Do you want to start giving an answer, Denise? What do you think?
Feel free to jump in, Chelsea. Great. I can do it later. Yeah.
So I guess, again, I'm speaking mostly specifically to the course that I've worked with. So one big part of it is that students have the option to say, no, I don't want to contribute to this open website. So that's a really important piece. And we give them a way by, a brief conversation with the instructor to figure out how to submit their weekly reflections that would go on the open site through a different assignment. And so that gives students a kind of the suite of options, whether they want to, jump in and share their full name, whether they want to use a pseudonym, whether they want to be anonymous, or if they want to, keep it between themselves and the instructor. So they have all of those options. And again, that preference and choice is shared in our Canvas activity that students complete kind of closer to the beginning of the quarter. And I'll just lastly answer the course credit question. At least in my class, yes, they do get credit for posting on the site weekly. So that's why we have them start by sharing, hey, I'm going to be this pseudonym, or I'm going to post with my name. And that allows the instructor to see that they have made those posts each week and give them the course credit.
So the ethics piece, I think, is at the heart of what we're trying to do and describe. We're trying to set this all up as an opportunity for students where they have all of the knowledge and information that they need, and they are able to make all of their own choices about open publishing, whether they want to do it, they don't want to do it, and under what circumstances. So we always recommend that whether or not they publish openly is not connected to the grade they get in the class. So they can complete the assignment, but not have it be open. And that is a neutral decision grade-wise, because that student agency and that understanding of what open is, those are key, because in the student learning experience, this is their experience. So we're trying to provide this opportunity for them and support them both in the work itself and in understanding open publishing. And so it's really important that they keep control over how that goes for the ethics piece.
Okay, so I guess I have a couple follow-up questions. That was my question, if we have time. So like one is, how do you balance like different strengths, like when you're giving credit? So what if you have a really weak assignment and the student, like it's maybe not good enough, or like it has mistakes in it and stuff? How do you share that? And then on the other hand, is it, if you're incorporating all of these different student things into one document, how do you manage if they all have choose different licenses? Especially what I'm thinking of is having them contribute examples and stuff to a textbook that I'm writing. And so it would be difficult if there's different licenses all throughout. Yeah.
Yeah, with the licensing, what we do is select the license in advance, and then students can respond directly to that choice. So they can choose to participate with that license or not. So it keeps it kind of more streamlined and simple for students, and obviously for faculty and for us. So that's kind of one way we've worked around that. And then the other piece, another thing we really recommend and try to work on throughout the quarter is lots of review cycles for student work, so that they get lots of feedback to improve their work. They get lots of opportunities for peer interactions and peer feedback, so that when they do go to publish their work openly, it's the best version of their work, and they've had opportunities to have conversations about it, and really get that best work out there.
Yeah, I'll
Thank
just
you.
add super quickly. And I was just working with this education class a few days ago, and that question or that feedback came up in the activity. Students were feeling, I think, a little stressed about how much peer review of the work was going into it as well. So some students were expressing that to the instructor, and I were talking about how that's a really important piece, both of work at college and also like when you move forward in your career and just in the world, being able to collaborate that way and give like honest, productive critique is an important life skill. So I think this kind of work can really help with that piece of it as well. And so as Denise said, trying to like help the instructor, I think through building that in, I think goes a long way to thinking about the quality and kind of work that's going into these open assignments. I think we're just about at time, sorry.
Yeah, we are so close. I was just gonna drop the website in the class that I've worked with in case anyone's curious. It's a little bit of a different approach. It's really just based on student reflections weekly. And so there's less concern about the full-on quality of the student work, and simply the fact that they are completing these reflections and contributing something to this course community and in the form of this website.
And before we wrap it up with our 5 minutes to go, we want to say thank you so much to all of our collaborators. In addition to all of you being here, thank you to our collaborators who have worked with us on these projects. Dr. Julie Shane, Dr. Sweta Shukla, Deborah Hathaway, our library colleagues, Penelope Wood, Hannah Mendro, Mary Shibig, Kat Wiley, and our technology and hosting partners, Alan Levine, Reclaim Hosting, and Pressbooks EDU. And a huge thank you to all of you for participating in this session. Thank you so much. I know I've learned a lot from all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Alyssa, Chelsea, and Denise for a wonderful presentation. Unfortunately, yes, we are at time, so we're going to have to stop. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.